It's been 11 years, and somehow, out of nowhere, while you're brushing your teeth or waiting for a coffee order, your brain decides to replay the exact moment you tripped in front of your entire class, or said you too, when a waiter told you to enjoy your meal. And your whole body reacts like it's happening right now. Your face gets hot. Your stomach drops. You physically wince, standing alone in your bathroom over something that happened over a decade ago and mattered to literally no one else on earth. Meanwhile, you can't remember what you had for lunch 3 days ago, but that one excruciating moment from middle school, filed away in perfect detail, ready to replay at any time, for the rest of your life, apparently. Why does the brain protect the memories that hurt the most, and let almost everything else quietly fade? Most people assume it's bad luck, that they're just more sensitive, more prone to dwelling. But this isn't a personality flaw, it's a feature that exists in essentially everyone, and it exists because, for most of human history, it kept people alive. Here's the part that sounds insulting until you understand it. Your brain doesn't care about your comfort, it never has. Its real job was survival, and for a social animal, dependent on tribes for food, warmth, and protection, social rejection wasn't just uncomfortable, it was a genuine threat. Getting humiliated in front of the group could mean isolation, and isolation, tens of thousands of years ago, could mean death. So the brain built a system to make sure that never happened twice. Think of it like a smoke detector installed by someone who'd rather it go off 1,000 times over nothing than miss one real fire. That detector isn't calibrated for your comfort. It's calibrated for survival, and it would rather ruin 10,000 quiet mornings than let a real threat slip by. Your memory for embarrassment works the same way. It's not trying to torture you at 2 a.m. It's trying to make sure you never repeat the mistake that once threatened your standing in the group, even if that mistake was tripping in front of people who forgot within the hour. This is why embarrassing memories get treated so differently from ordinary ones. Ordinary memories, what you ate, what you wore, get filed as low priority. But the moment your brain detects social danger, it floods the moment with stress chemicals, and emotional intensity acts like a highlighter on memory. The stronger the charge, the deeper it gets carved into long-term storage. The amygdala essentially tags the moment as important, prioritizing it in a way neutral moments never receive. Which means the hot, sick, humiliated feeling you hate was the exact mechanism making sure you'd never forget the lesson. Your body wasn't malfunctioning, it was taking notes. But knowing this doesn't explain why the memory still hurts 11 years later. Shouldn't the lesson have been learned by now? This is where most people misunderstand what's actually happening. It doesn't feel like remembering, it feels like reliving. Ordinary memories get recalled from a slight distance, like watching a photograph. But highly emotional memories, especially ones tied to shame, often get recalled as if you're back inside them, seeing through your own eyes, feeling the same sensations. Researchers call this the difference between observer and field memories, and embarrassing memories are disproportionately field memories, the kind that pull your nervous system back into the original moment instead of just showing it to you. That's why the cringe isn't metaphorical. Your body generates a genuine low-level version of the original stress response. Heart rate rising, muscles tensing, over something that ended years ago. Your nervous system has no reliable way of tagging danger as expired. If it can still be recalled that vividly, some part of you treats it as still relevant. Relevant to what, though? You'll likely never see most of these people again. So what is this system still protecting you from? Here's the twist. The target was never really other people. It was you. Every embarrassing memory carries an unspoken rule about who you're supposed to be, and it sticks around to enforce that rule. Freezing during a presentation didn't just teach you public speaking is scary, it installed something more specific, like I must always sound competent. A joke falling flat didn't just embarrass you, it installed don't take social risks. These memories function less like scars and more like tiny constitutional amendments to your identity, written in a moment of maximum emotional intensity and rarely questioned afterward. This is why two people can experience the same embarrassing moment and walk away with completely different memories. Picture two coworkers stumbling through the same pitch. One thinks that was rough, I'll prepare better, and forgets it in a week. The other carries it for a decade, tied to a deeper belief that they're fundamentally not smart enough for that room. Same event, wildly different permanence. The difference isn't the severity of the stumble, it's what the moment confirmed. For the second coworker, it felt like proof of something they already feared was true. Memories that confirm a pre-existing fear about identity get stored far more powerfully than ones that are simply unfortunate. The brain isn't just remembering an embarrassing moment, it's remembering evidence. This explains why the memory that haunts you is rarely the objectively worst thing that ever happened. Sometimes it's genuinely minor, a mispronounced word, an awkward laugh. But smallness was never the deciding factor. Meaning was. If a small moment landed directly on your most guarded insecurity, your memory filed it as a 5-alarm fire regardless of how it looked from outside. Now here's the part almost nobody realizes, and it reframes everything. The memory you keep replaying is very likely not accurate anymore. Every time you recall a memory, your brain reconstructs it from fragments, and each time you pull it up, it becomes briefly unstable, capable of being subtly rewritten before it's restored. This is called reconsolidation. Memory isn't a filing cabinet. It's closer to a rumor passed through 100 retellings, shifting slightly each time, which means the humiliating scene in your head, the exaggerated laughter, the certainty everyone noticed, has likely been dramatized over years of replay. Each replay, driven by shame, amplifies the worst details and erases the neutral ones. The friend who never looked up from their phone gets edited out. The two people who laughed get zoomed in on until they represent in your memory the reaction of the entire room. That's why, if you ever ask someone who was actually there, the answer is almost always disappointing in the best way. They don't remember it at all. Not out of kindness, because it simply wasn't as significant to them as it became to you. You were the main character of your own humiliation. Everyone else was living their own storyline that day, barely noticing the supporting cast. This is the spotlight effect. We overestimate how much others notice and remember about us because we're each trapped inside our own perspective, unavoidably the center of everything. So if the memory is exaggerated and the audience barely remembers, why does the alarm still go off? Because the brain doesn't reevaluate old dangers just because time has passed. It waits for new evidence, and shame-based memories rarely get any, because most people spend their lives avoiding the memory rather than examining it closely enough to update it. You don't reopen the case. You slam the door every time it creaks, which means it never gets the chance to close properly. That's the real reason the memory still stings after 11 years, or 50. Not because the event was catastrophic, but because it was never re-examined, never updated, never filed as old news. It's still sitting there exactly as tagged the day it happened, urgent, unresolved, because nothing since has told your brain otherwise. There's hope hidden in that though. If the memory is powerful because it was never updated, it isn't a life sentence. It's an outdated file, still marked urgent, purely out of habit. Picture a house alarm installed decades ago, still wired to a phone line that no longer exists. It doesn't know the threat model changed. It just keeps running the original program, waiting for someone to walk in and reprogram it. Your embarrassing memories are running on old software, installed by a younger version of you who genuinely believed that moment might define how the whole tribe saw them forever. But you're not in that room anymore. The people who witnessed it have mostly forgotten, moved on, built new memories over that day. The only place it still exists in perfect detail, sound, heat, shame, is inside you, because you're the only one still running the old alarm. That doesn't mean the feeling won't be real next time it hits. It will still make your face hot, still make you wince alone over something a decade old. But now you know what it actually is, not proof you're fundamentally embarrassing. Just an old alarm, wired to a threat that expired long ago, going off out of habit, because nobody ever told it the danger had passed. Maybe that's the moment to finally tell it. What's the memory that still makes you cringe out of nowhere, years later, over something almost no one else remembers? If this finally explains something you've never been able to make sense of, subscribe. This is exactly the kind of thing worth understanding about your own mind.